Hello, good morning. I've got Peta with me here today. Peta, how are you?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I'm looking forward to putting you in the spotlight this morning. So, or this afternoon, I guess, depending on
Uh-huh.
whose frame you're looking from. So, Peta is a copywriter. She's one of the founding members of the First Gen community. So, I'm really excited to have you here with us today. We're going to dive in a little bit more detail about what you do, why you do it, what makes you different, all that kind of good stuff. And we're going to cover all of this in about 10 minutes or so. So, the way I like to open these up is with what I call pitch perfect. So, Peta, I'm going to give you 60 seconds or less to give us your best elevator pitch. If you met a total random stranger in an elevator and they said, "Hey, nice to meet you. What do you do?"
I am a copywriter and messaging strategist, which means nothing to do with trademarks. I help you stand out online in all of your messaging. So if you are in a particularly crowded niche and you're always buffing up against somebody else who sounds the same as you, but you know that there is something special about the way that you do things and the transformation that you bring, then you need me. And I help you translate that onto the page so that you are always showing people what your superpower is and what they can get out of working with you.
Okay, nice. You did that in 40 seconds. So you got
I didn't
time to
beat
say,
Nora. I'm
yeah.
sad.
Yeah, that's it's going to be hard to beat the pitch, the queen of pitch. So, but that's good though. I like that. When I meet entrepreneurs, most of them, 95% of them, are in a crowded market, I would say.
Yeah.
Part of that's the nature of being in such a connected world. When we can work remotely,
Mm-hmm.
there's a zillion options for anything you want to do. So how do you stand out? And that's I think most people are looking for a way to do that. So that
Yeah.
seems like that's a good effective pitch. All right, so let's get into the next section then. I'm going to ask you 3 questions that you have kindly provided to me, but these are designed to kind of start to dissect that pitch a little bit deeper. So we're going to ask the first question here, which I thought was a little bit of a spicy question. Why shouldn't people write their own copy? So as someone who writes his own copy right now, I'm eager to see the answer to this one.
Okay. You know everything that there is to know about your business. You have sat at your computer screen, at your kitchen table, in the car while you're waiting to pick up the kids from soccer practice or football practice, depending on where you are, with your notepad, working out exactly how everything's going to work, the principles behind what you do, the process and the framework behind why you do it. You've delved into the tech, you've delved into the nuances of your logo, all these kind of things. Like, you know your business inside out. You are the expert. But that means that you are too close to your business to understand it from the perspective of your customers or your clients. Your clients have not spent hours sitting at a kitchen table working out how your business works and why your way is the best way of doing something. And when you are that far ahead of where your customers are, it is incredibly difficult to put yourself back in their shoes and explain the value of what you do and the unique nature of what you do to them effectively, because you know too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of people think that they hire a copywriter when they're not very good at writing, or when they don't have time to write. Those are normally like the conversations that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and that's totally true. Like, if you know that you're not a good writer, then yes, hire someone who
Right.
that is their zone of genius. That makes perfect sense. And if you don't have the time, then yes, outsource the things that other people can do, so you can focus on the things that only you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not, if you are good at writing or if you have the time, that doesn't mean that that is the best thing for you to be doing with your time. And it doesn't mean that you are the best person to get that message across. So I work with a whole range of different businesses. I focus kind of primarily in health and wellness, but I also work with SaaS. I work with kind of financial advisors occasionally, real estate, life admin, all kinds of different things. And very often, I'm not an expert on that particular business industry or niche. But that doesn't matter, because that means that they can explain their business to me, and then I know what their customer needs to know, what their client needs to know, and I can come at it from a position of, I mean, maybe not a beginner, but of somebody who's not an expert, and I can craft a message that resonates with people who aren't experts. And I have a bigger perspective. So I can look at the whole picture. Whereas very often as a business owner, if you're the expert in your business, you are down in the weeds in a particular area. Yeah. Like popping your blinders on. Whereas I can look at the whole thing and go, this bit here isn't quite right. But what about that bit over there?
Right.
So that would be why.
That makes a lot of sense, because I think of it from, like, take my prior industry was IT. It's very technical, and even when you think you're translating it down into plain English that people understand, oftentimes you're still not, right? And so having someone who is not an expert in your industry is actually now an advantage, because they're going to see it the way your prospective client sees it. And so you can't see the forest for the trees when you're inside the forest, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. All right. And that's a really cool distinction too, that the time, the expertise, even if you've got both of those, you still need outside perspective. So that's cool. I like it. All right, let's go to our next question. How can entrepreneurs stand out in crowded niches?
Very good.
Okay. All right, good.
We can say niches if you like.
No, it doesn't sound natural when you say it that way. It's like,
no, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's so not elegant when you say niches, So
very rarely am I described as elegant, but thank you.
No, you've got it by default. It's fine.
Okay, so this is like my own personal hobby horse. Often in businesses, especially as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, especially first generation entrepreneurs, we think that in order to sound credible and in order to sound professional, like we know what we're doing and people can trust us, we have to talk in a certain way. We have to talk about certain things, and we have to conduct ourselves in the way that everybody else in our industry does, because that's the way that we're taken seriously.
That's the professional way.
That is the professional thing. Like, so the equivalent of what you'd wear. Like, you have to turn up in a suit.
Right.
But that makes it very, very difficult to stand out, because everybody is doing the same thing. I think the best way that you can stand out in a crowded niche is to make more authentic connections with your audience. That's a bit of a buzz phrase, but for me, what that means is your values and your personality should be part of your messaging.
Okay.
You need to bring some of yourself into your business. I think that sometimes or often the urge to be professional can be a block on making that connection. And that's what I help businesses do, to find out what their values are, to clarify them, to be able to communicate them, and then to weave them into their messaging. And that makes you stand out, because nobody in your niche has exactly the same values and exactly the same personality as you. And it also means that you are more likely to attract people who align with those values and with that personality. So you end up with better fit clients, and clients who are nicer to work with, because they're your kind of people.
And I think the more you let your personality out, you're going to attract the people that are attracted to you, but you're going to repel the people who don't like what you're at. And that's just fine, because you don't want them as clients anyway.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense to me. And I think it's interesting how relatively few people are comfortable doing what you just said.
Yeah.
And yet it's the exact thing that they need to be able to stand out. But when you look at LinkedIn as an example, so much of the content people put out there is just very, corporate and bland, and just scroll right past it. But when someone shows some personality and is their authentic selves, you're just naturally it's gonna catch your attention. And that's how you can stand out in a crowded niche. Yes, very nice. I love it. And just to drive this home,
Yeah.
it's part of what you're doing,
Mhm.
right? Is helping them develop that or come across that way in their copy.
Yeah. So the first thing that I do on all of my projects is to nail down the brand messaging. And as part of that, I spend time talking to my client about the things that they care about, like why they started a business. And often, especially with first generation entrepreneurs, it's because of some kind of passion or some kind of story,
right?
Or some kind of like drive that's connected to an event in their life or an experience or just like a personal kind of mission. And the more we can talk about those things, the more compelling we are. But often it's difficult because, again, you're really close to it, to one, see that as something that can help your business, but two, translate it into like words that make sense and that are compelling.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I wanted to make sure we didn't just skip over like how you help people with that process. And you're spot on. Everybody's going to have a story, especially first gens. It's like there's some passion there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this because it's crazy town. All right. Awesome. Last question. What superpower do you bring to your work?
Okay. So I spent 15 years as a youth worker working with teenagers, having conversations with skeptical students on like skate park walls and stuff, which again is not very elegant. But it was a lot of fun. But it was also really hard work, and you have to be authentic because like teenagers can spot bullshit like
right
a mile away. Yeah. You can't you can't pretend to be cool or any of those things.
I picture that. Have you seen that meme of Steve Buscemi where he's like, "Hey, young kids," and he's got the hat and the skateboard? That's immediately what comes to mind.
Yeah. It's like looking in a mirror. Yes. So you can't do that. It doesn't work. What you have to do is you have to have massive amounts of empathy. Like you have to be willing to understand where they're coming from, to take their problems seriously, to listen not only to what they're saying, but what's going on behind what they're saying, and to really care about their lives and their feelings and their situations. And that is the superpower that I bring to my business, which I didn't know was going to be my superpower when I started copywriting. But it turns out that customers are a lot like skeptical teenagers. They don't like being marketed to. They are suspicious of being sold to. And they have real problems that they are still looking for solutions to. And so being able to empathize with those problems, being able to listen to the feelings that those problems cause, the pains, all that kind of thing is incredibly important to help me craft copy and messages that resonate with those audiences. And when it comes to my clients, I like to think that the reason why I have such great relationships with my clients is because I empathize with them and I listen to them. Like I really care about their business and I care about them as a human being. I'm not like a hit and run, right, I've written you 12 Instagram posts, thanks for cashing the check, now I'm off.
Right.
So it's bigger than that for me. I'm helping people find their voice and put their passions into words. So that empathy is a key part of my practice.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think is only going to become more important with time, especially with the advent of AI and how we're going to just have a flood and avalanche of milk toast, just bland. I don't know. It's just not going to be the same. But being empathetic and having that human connection and then translating that into words that aren't too technical and actually, communicate to prospects in a way that they can understand, like all of that, I think adds up into a superpower. I think that's what sets you apart. And it's just going to be more important as time goes on. So,
I think so.
Awesome. Well, Peta, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day
to
do this with me. If you want to get in touch with Peta, her website is wordsbypeta.com, which is pretty clever. I like that. And I'll put the link in the post below. And if you have any questions for Peta, you can just leave a comment inside that post, and she'll be following that and can respond from there. So, Peta, again, thanks so much. I'm glad to have you in the community, and loved having a moment to learn a little bit more about you today.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Take care.
All right,
Bye.
take care. Bye.